episodes. Welcome,
Okay.
everybody, to Dead Talk Live. Today, we are joined by the cast and crew of The Serpent Queen, premiering exclusively on Stars September 11th. First up, we have the lovely Samantha Morton, who plays the Serpent Queen herself, Catherine De Medici. Samantha, thank you so much for being here. And let's just get started. Like we said, play Catherine De Medici, who is known as the Serpent Queen. From the very beginning, Catherine takes a liking to one of her maids, Rayma. What does Catherine see in this person that separates her from all the other people that she has in her life?
Um, Firstly, thank you for having me on the show. It's great to be able to talk about the Serpent Queen. I think Catherine, without giving away any spoilers, there's a reason why Catherine has decided to talk to Rahima. So I can't fully answer the question in regards to what she likes about her, but I think that she sees something in her that's very familiar.
Okay. Speaking with Liv, and we talked about the importance she playing the younger version of Catherine, and sort of gives us a timeline as to Catherine became who she is in the present time. Did you and Liv have conversations on how she was going to portray young Catherine and how you were going to portray your Catherine?
Um, we certainly spoke. We spoke on Zoom about our interpretation of Catherine. That Liv is playing 14-year-old Catherine, and then I'm playing Catherine, who kind of takes the baton in her 30s. So there was a huge amount of artistic freedom for Liv to be the Catherine she wanted to be. I think we both seemed to be on the same page a lot about Catherine when we were talking on the Zooms, certainly to do with understanding Catholicism, her time in a convent, what that would have meant to her, her faith, her falling in love with Henry. So yeah, there were more just conversations than anything else.
Now, Catherine de Medici is a real world historical figure. How intensely did you dive into the real character to bring your portrayal to the screen?
Um, well, firstly, it's based on a book, so
Hmm.
that's the thing. To be able to, I listened to the audiobook and listened to whatever I could find out about her, and also looking at prints of her, of portraits. She was a real person in history, so you can kind of go and look and obviously we were lucky that we were filming in the real places that she lived, and I was able to walk and act in those buildings and touch the walls and know that she'd been there, and try to be really respectful of that and hope that in some way that was feeding into the performance. Yeah.
Did you see your role, who is a woman who is the product of her experiences in her younger life, as we see through young Catherine's eyes, as a woman scorned, or is it a woman who has come into her own power in a man's world, sort of found her empowerment and how to find her place in a world that is really ruled by men?
Yes, it is. I think that's just in society even today. I think for her it starts off as survival, and then it's not about ego or narcissism or power in a survival. And then at a certain point, this her whole life is like a game of chess. Somebody's
Hmm.
always wanting to kill her or get one up on her and get rid of her, for various different reasons. Um, so it's more about the survival of her family, and then the survival of the France that she knows and loves.
Absolutely. Samantha, I want to thank you so much for giving us your time. I want to let
Thank you,
everybody
John.
know again that The Serpent Queen is premiering exclusively on Stars Sunday, September 11th, starring Samantha Morton. Please check it out. I started watching it last night and I binge watched it straight through the night. You were great. Thank you so much,
Oh my gosh,
Samantha.
thank you.
Hello, everybody. We're back now with Liv Hill, who plays young Catherine in STARZ' new show, The Serpent Queen. Liv, thank you for joining us today. Now, you play young Catherine. What was it like immersing yourself in the entire 16th century environment, France, with the costuming and the whole feel of the environment? Did you fall right into place? Did it take some getting used to? Explain that to us.
I think it definitely got some getting used to because first of all, I live in England, and then suddenly we're shooting in France in these magnificent chateaux, Chateau Chambord, Chateau Chenonceau. Then you've got hundreds and hundreds of extras in these amazing, magnificent, decadent period costumes. And myself, I was in a corset. So it definitely was quite overwhelming, but at the same time, very easy to believe that that was the era in which it was set. And I think that translates onto screen as well.
Absolutely. Now, the story of young Catherine is very important to the narrative of this story. Did you and Samantha have discussions beforehand during shooting on how young Catherine grows up to be the Serpent Queen?
Um, I mean, it's a really good question, and when I think back, we didn't have many discussions. No, we spoke briefly before. Just I think more just to get each other's blessing to play the character. I mean, she was. I had a bit of imposter syndrome. They're very big shoes to fill. But the first thing Samantha said to me was just, "I'm so happy you're doing this. I was so pleased when I found out. Just trust in yourself and just do what you want to do." And for me as a young actress, that was really kind of her and generous. So we kind of just trusted in the casting process, and at the end of the day, it's a story about survival, and that was our intention for the young Catherine and the old Catherine.
What makes young Catherine so fascinating for me is that she can absorb the criticism that is handed out to her, but
Mm.
yet not really take it in a negative fashion, but to better herself, to make her stronger and thicken her skin, for lack of a better term. How do you
Mm.
view the character as young Catherine?
I mean, you're totally right. She was belittled, degraded. She's been emotionally and physically abused her whole life, and yet she still retains some sort of self-esteem, which is kind of remarkable. Um, I think I think a part of me feels she kind of had no other option but to survive. She had to do that. But also, there's dark magic that's sort of highlighted in the series a lot. And I think when I played young Catherine, I genuinely believed I had magical powers, that I was this sort of special person. And I think that gave Catherine her unwavering self belief in herself and probably ensured was the reason why she survived, because I don't know how someone could take all that abuse and still retain that resilience.
Absolutely. One last question before we run out of time. I love the little short monologues the writers give you while you're talking to the camera. When you're trying to stay in character during these scenes, does talking into the camera and then resuming your conversations with your scene partner, is that very creative? Does it help you as an actor, or do you find it distracting?
I didn't find it distracting. I felt it was a challenge because you want to do it quite seamlessly and not make it too like obvious. But I totally enjoy doing it. I love that sort of the breaking of the fourth wall, and I think it is a sort of like almost a helping hand to the audience as well, because there's a lot of political chat and power play, and it sort of just gives them that helping hand and leads them on to the next part of the story.
Moving forward, are you just really excited to see how the evolution of Catherine evolves beyond what the people are going to see on the premiere on September 11th?
Yeah, yeah. I think she is so notoriously known as this evil queen, and actually, this show debunks, or if not debunks, then explains the reason why she obtained that reputation. And I can't wait for people to discover.
Absolutely. Liv, I want to thank you so much. Young
Thank you.
Catherine is just the star of the show. Welcome, everybody. This is Viz again from Dead Talk Live. We are now being joined by writer and executive producers Justin Haythe and Erwin Stoff. Welcome, guys. I hope you're doing well. I want to first say congratulations on the Serpent Queen. I started the show yesterday and I binge watched every episode they gave us. I loved it. It's just addicting. It really
Right.
is. Let's start with Justin. What was the attraction to the story and the time period of Catherine and basically the time period that Catherine lived in? What was the attraction to that period and the character themselves?
The attraction to the period came definitely through my interest in her. And I wasn't looking for a period show. I read this book and I thought, this is a modern woman negotiating the 16th century, and that there were all kinds of parallels to our time. And I thought, she's been portrayed as a villain in history. And I loved the idea of a villain turning to us and saying, hey, let me tell you why I did what I did. And you would have done the same, because all the good people are dead at the side of the road. And she fit that. And so my interest in the period really came through this. I thought was a great female anti-hero of a kind I hadn't seen. And that's what I followed that interest.
I completely agree. And you can't help but fall in love with Catherine. Now, Erwin, even though the period fantasy is a popular genre in today's market, what were some of the challenges in reconstructing the Renaissance in France that you just basically did not expect going into this?
The biggest challenge, I mean, look, we had an amazing crew and we had amazing artisans and craftsmen and artists and so on. But probably the biggest challenge is that for a whole variety of reasons that had nothing to do with the show, but had to do with COVID and insurance and all of that stuff, we had a very, very, very short preparation period. So we basically were running and gunning, making this show. And that was all because of COVID.
Wow.
And that was probably the biggest challenge, because everything in the show was sort of bespoke. You know, sets had to be built, costumes had to be both designed and built, and so on and so forth. And trying to do all of that while not compromising on the quality of things, that was the biggest challenge.
And I got to tell you, when you brought up costumes, they're just absolutely breathtaking. The costumes and the whole period, the way you guys reconstructed that. Justin, you talked about the false narratives that were told about Catherine, and you wanted to tell this story. When confronted between the reality and the fiction, which element did you decide was going to win when you were telling your story about Catherine?
Well, I mean, history, when you read about history, right, you read enough, there's three different versions of every event, right? So you have to decide on the spirit of truth, and also decide on the spirit of truth of that specific character. But also, you know, if we take history as our guide, this world is only populated by royals and nobles, right? Everybody else gets written out.
Yeah.
So there's a whole section of the show that is open for pure invention. Who are all the people who didn't get a mention? Right. And we've whitewashed history. We've made history much more sort of homogenous than it really was. And so there's a lot of room to express elements that hadn't been done before. And at the same time, stay true. I mean, stay true to the real events, because it was really important to me while doing a modern version of this, that we never undermined the stakes, because these people were dealing with royal plague, war, black magic. These were real things in their work, and I wanted to make sure they stayed important. That we weren't so anachronistic that we undermined. I wanted the audience to worry about these people. So a war with the Holy Roman Emperor is something they worried about.
Absolutely.
So in that sense, that you had to follow the history.
One final question before we go. The picks for Samantha and Liv to play Catherine and young Catherine were absolutely perfect. I mean, Samantha Morton, brilliant actress. Liv Hill, amazing as young Catherine. Was it a difficult process for you guys to find the perfect Catherines to play these roles?
No,
I mean,
And that's the truth.
yeah,
Samantha was a very, very, very early pick, and Liv auditioned, and she just jumped out at us.
Absolutely. And what's interesting about them is they come from roughly the same place in England,
yeah,
which is a really specific, interesting part of England.
yeah.
And they both have this, I thought, this incredible poise that you understand why young Catherine made it.
Yeah.
You understand just in Liv's poise. It's incredible.
It is. It is.
The other thing that they also both share, because they come from relatively the same place, is England is still a much more class-oriented society than America, or
Yes.
culture than America is. And they both are, neither of them are particularly posh people.
Yeah.
So they both really understand what Catherine, who was a commoner, was up against.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much. Again, the show is called The Serpent Queen, exclusively premiering on STARZ September 11th. Check it out. You won't regret it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.